I actually think that this is far bigger, and I think you'll all agree, Chewy, and they'll all agree, that this is far bigger than a Dunedin story, because it's emblematic of what this government is doing, whether it's ferries or whether it's, people working in government departments, whether it's kāinga order, whatever it is, they are looking to shave billions of dollars off the budgets so they can keep paying people, so they can keep giving away tax cuts and landlords reimbursements. Let's have a look at this story from, I tell you what, it's been beautiful in Dunedin for a couple of weeks and the weather packed it up today, and I realised it was just because a couple of fuckers came into town and brought it with them. Well, you can tell it was around them, just this gloominess. Let's have a look at the story.
The government has also signalled its intention to downscale Dunedin's new hospital, saying new costings of...
That's that hospital that, as Chewy said, has already got the foundation and the walls are going up. So they're probably going to leave one wing just with no wall on the end of it. That's their downscaling.
Built cannot be justified. Dunedin's mayor says the project has been designed by clinicians as the best for his community, and the city won't accept...
I actually got to say this as well of the mayor. No, not just for our community. This was going to service the whole bottom half of the South Island. Queenstown, Invercargill, this was going to be the centre for any real serious stuff as well. So it's far bigger than just Dunedin. This was going to service a lot more people than that. Or this is going to service a lot more people than that.
Anything less. And Labour's accusing the government of hating the entire South Island. Here's our senior political correspondent, Jenna Lynch.
As work continued on Dunedin's new hospital...
Okay, pause, people. Get rid of that car. Get rid of that car. There's the hospital. That's the building. It's in the one ways right now. That is the building. Does it look like they've got time, Chewy, to change the budgetary decisions now? That's the construction site. You're looking at it. That's the construction site. So what are they going to do? I think they're going to take half of these windows off and maybe try and put them on Trade Me to get some money back and cut the end of the building off or something like that. But this is the building. That's what we're saying. It would be as if you were building your house and everything was in place, and then you were like, hey, let's lose a bedroom. But hang on, the walls are already all in place. No, let's just lose a bedroom. We don't need that bedroom, we've decided.
On a drizzly old Dunners day, the government showed up down the road with bleak news.
The cost of this project cannot be justified.
Yes, it can. Be honest.
And I will justify it for you shortly.
Be honest, we don't want to pay it. It can be justified. It can be justified. That is false.
When hospitals around New Zealand are crying out for maintenance, upgrades, and new facilities.
It's your fault, Nelson.
Fuck you.
Nelson, you've ruined it for us because you've got a crappy hospital too. So these guys aren't giving us our hospital. See what they're doing? They're literally trying to play people off against each other.
Please.
Dunedin's been crying out for a new hospital.
Look at that 1950s, 60s, a brick concrete eyesore. Still does a good job though.
Hospital for years.
Over a long period of time, with clinicians going into battle versus bean counters and politicians, and we've finally got an agreed set of facilities and services, and that's what's needed in this hospital. And we won't settle for any less.
The minister's pitting cities against each other.
We can't justify spending up to $3 billion here because that comes at the cost of potentially in other investments in the wider region, but also other regional hospitals in Nelson, Whangarei, Napier.
Told you, Nelson. And isn't it just beautiful, Chewy? If there's nothing else about it, isn't it just beautiful that they're now complaining about $3 billion? Just that figure. That figure
it's an oddly specific number.
It's an oddly specific number. $3 billion. I mean, it would have been more specific if he said we can't afford the $2.9 billion because we've already given that to the landlords. But strange that it's just around that kind of number by chance of $3 billion. We couldn't have found that anywhere. It's impossible to find. Like we'd had a look at all the mattresses. It was gone. We couldn't do anything about it as landlords get their $3 billion.
That is the blunt truth.
So the government has two options on the table.
Sorry. No, it's not. That is the active choices this government has made. Fucking own it. You've done it. You've made the choices. You've made the decisions to siphon that money off. And you're the reason that this choice has to be made. it's so cowardly. As I show you another picture of this Dunedin building that they're going to now cut back on, that the external part of it's basically finished.
It will scale back the current project by, for instance, not building as many floors and delaying the fit out of some areas, or can the new site and undertake a staged development of the old hospital site with a new clinical building and a refurbishment of the old ward tower. The Mayor is fuming.
Shocked and outraged. It's quite astonishing.
And so is this community.
If I'm outraged, they're incensed. You know, they are really upset by this.
National promised in the election campaign to build the hospital, saying it would deliver all the beds, operating theatres and radiology services that had previously been trimmed from the project. But now,
the cost of the new Dunedin hospital could approach $3 billion. That would make
that's a strangely specific number again.
At one of the most expensive hospitals ever built in the Southern Hemisphere.
That is untrue. Where did this figure come from?
Who knows?
Well, I think if we admitted Chris Bishop to the gastroenterology department at Dunedin Hospital, we might be able to get a scope and find out where that $3 billion figure came from.
The government's U-turn prompting an urgent parliamentary debate.
The people of Dunedin need a new hospital. Their current hospital is unsuitable and it is unsafe. 500 instances of surgical equipment being contaminated every year.
The last government knew this project was going wildly off course and chose not to take steps to bring it back on track.
Do you know what they did? And I'm sorry to say it for a ninth time in one clip. They chose not to give $3 billion to landlords, and they were going to find some overruns from there. So even if what Nicola Willis is saying is 100% true, what the last government did was made sure there was enough money in the coffers to pay for those overruns, rather than giving it all away and then going, we don't have enough to pay for it, which you guys have to own. You have to own that, National.
Manufactured crisis about the cost of this hospital.
The fact of the matter is that this government basically hates the South Island.
The people of Dunedin definitely not feeling the love tonight.
Oh, God, it's a Lion King reference at the end there. Chewy, we've got more to show, but you want to dry. I've got that clip from Mr. Luxon, and we've got the thing off their website. So you go, sir, and you say when and where, and I'm here.
Tax cuts for landlords. There'll be no hospitals. I'll tell Dunedin. A Simpsons
Yikes.
meme sums this whole fucking thing up. It's hard to understand. I know there's a lot of our viewers are from Dunedin and they'll get it almost instantly. For those of you that are elsewhere in the country, the palpable rage in this town at the moment is undescribable. Everyone I have spoken to about this today is furious. There was already a march planned for this Saturday. I think they have almost tripled their numbers just on this announcement. If you're in Dunedin or can get to Dunedin on Saturday, that march is from the dental school to the Octagon starting at 12 o'clock. If you're able to come, I suggest you do. What is always missed in the story, it is not just Dunedin's hospital. This is the main hospital for the lower half of the South Island. We have in our recent memory knowledge of what happens when you have an earthquake in a major city that takes out a hospital. What lessons have we learned? What do we know? The likelihood of the southern fault going is in our lifetimes.
Yeah.
And we are going to downscale a hospital. For those residents in the Queenstown Lakes area and Southland, where their regional hospitals don't provide those services, they come to Dunedin. I was talking to someone today who was under the most used flight path for the air ambulance. He sees at least 4 flights a day of people getting flown into Dunedin Hospital for urgent care. The hospital that we have now was designed in the 60s and built in the 70s for a much lower population, and it wasn't designed for the amount of use that it gets now. It is falling apart. It is leaking. It is full of asbestos. It is a poor workplace, and it is a poor place for people to get care. The people that work there are doing their damned best to hold on because they knew that this was coming. They knew that a new hospital was coming.
And they do a bloody good job. People who have been around for a while, I had my gallbladder out, 18 months ago, whatever it was. And the staff was amazing. The service was amazing. But I actually can remember being wheeled into the operating theatre looking around and seeing the state of it. It and I'm going to be a bit dramatic here, but I used to watch MASH. We've all watched MASH from time to time. And you know that the kind of circle that they have around the bed where the operating table is all completely sterile, but one step away from that, there's like tents and that kind of stuff. I'm not saying that the hospital had tents, but it felt to me like you looked at the walls and you looked at the ceiling and you're like, holy crap, this place looks like it's, not clean, not sanitary. And that's what the operating theatres are like. Now they are, right? I'm not saying, I'm casting no shade here because it was great and they were fantastic. But it was a particularly strange experience to go in there and think this is 2024 and it feels like it feels like I'm going into a 1950s hospital that's been around since 1950s, 70s, but and it's finished. It's Dunedin Hospital is the ferry of the South Island. It's done its dash. Its life is over.
I think the thing is, like many key parts of New Zealand infrastructure, it is 20 years overdue for replacement. And this is why there has been so much fight. National started the process of replacing it. And this is key for some of the things that they said today, that one of the options that they were considering was a refit of the current hospital. God. That is something that they ruled out straight out of the gates in 2017 because the information that they had said that it was going to be as expensive as building a new hospital, be disruptive for the operation of the hospital at the time, and deliver worse outcomes than building a whole new hospital. And I think if you think about it for more than a minute, that makes sense.
I think what you'll find is what they think is
now
a
we're
fit
just
out
circling back to it. That
is very different from what a fit out actually would be. Their fit out might be a paint job and some designs. That's how they'll end up doing it. It won't be a fit out like you would expect to be brought up to modern standards.
I've got to say, Pat, you're cutting out a lot for me, so I'm not sure how clear it's coming through. The other thing I would say is this government, when Labor were campaigning, they made promises. They campaigned on the fact that this hospital was going to go ahead as designed, as pledged. It was going to be a leading facility that would look after this part of the country for the future. It was going to continue to be a premier teaching hospital.
Yeah, that's another really
These
good point because we've got the university that's
disappeared in smoke.
All right, one of the things that might be happening too is we might have a bit of a delay tonight between me and you. That's probably part of what's going on right now. But this is in July 2023. So what's that? July, August, September, October. This is 3 months before the election. This is what our current hairless leader said.
What I want to announce today is that the National Party is going to build this hospital, but importantly, we're going to build this hospital back to the specification that it was originally intended in terms of giving us the capacity that we need and that we will need for the future with the generations to come. And what that means in particular is that we're going to deliver all the beds, all the operating theatres and all the radiology services that the Labor government has removed from the original specification for this hospital.
There you go. And that's basically all you need to hear. It goes on for another 2 minutes, but basically he was saying when Labor got this planned, or when it was planned under the Labor regime, it was the Ferrari, to coin a phrase, of hospitals. Labor turned it into a Corolla. We're going to put it back to a Ferrari. And right now, what we've got is a Hillman Hunter from 1970s. That's what they're saying they're going to actually end up doing. So there's that one. There's also this one, Cherie, which you talked about, and you found this weird. Do you want to speak to it?
This is from their own website. This is from National's website. It is still up there.
A national government will build the hospital Dunedin needs. National's health spokesman, Dr. Shane Reti, and List MP based in Dunedin, Michael Woodhouse, say, if elected in October, National will deliver all the beds, operating theatres and radiology services that Labor removed. The cost of this commitment is $29.5 million. I don't quite understand that. Are they saying that they thought the cost of the whole hospital would be $29.5 million, or are they saying to put these things back in will be an additional $29.5 million and will be fully funded as part of the next national government's program of capital investment? And then, of course, come time to stand by your words, what we get from this government is this. That's what they say to us. Shall we?
I mean, I'm just going to put up a wee map again for people that are not in Dunedin, just to give you a little bit of context here. This is the site. Our current hospital is this block here.
Yep.
The new hospital is this whole area here. They have bought 2 blocks of the city to build out a new main hospital building, which is, I think, some of what we saw. Pat put up the video before. That is essentially this section of the hospital has been built. There's still all of this. And then there's the outpatients and research end, and there was even room for future expansion. So this is, when they talk about it, this isn't something that we're putting up for 10 years. It's not a Band-Aid solution. It is generational thinking. You build a hospital, you build it for 50 plus years. That's what they did with the old one, and we've outgrown it. It is old. It is time for it to go. And at every stage, like, I don't care if it was National or it was Labor, every time there was talk of downscaling, or maybe we'll put in this unit later on, all of this sort of thing, the city has reacted, because we know if we let them do it, this town has had to fight to keep its neurology department. It's had to keep the ability to keep training medical staff. It has had to fight for everything, because we're all the way down here in the bottom of the South Island. It is exactly what I have been talking about all year with National. And we mentioned at the start that they know the cost of everything, they see the value of nothing, and they are short-term thinkers.
Mm-hmm.
The problem that they need to solve is, how do we build what we've promised? How do we build what this country needs? Stop saying it's Dunedin's hospital. It's the South Island's hospital.
Yep.
It's the country's hospital. It is critical national level infrastructure, and these guys are nickel and diming it. They seem to think that somehow you can build a hospital while you use it in chunks, and that is somehow going to be cheaper by extending the whole thing out. Or that we can somehow retrofit an old small building from the 1970s. Both of those options should not fly. And Luxon needs to be held to his word. Reti needs to be held to his word. All of these fucking rats need to be held to their word. My sister works in this hospital. And from what I hear, the rage that is in those medical staff in that hospital, it is phenomenal. And we cannot let this happen.
I'm just looking, I haven't found it off the top of my head very quickly, but I wonder what the population in Dunedin was in 1970. Because even just that in and of itself is a really, really key marker for this. You know, let's say it was half. Now it's doing double the population of Dunedin. And I'm saying that I don't know, actually, so don't accuse me of just pulling numbers out of my ass. But then it's not only that, as we've been saying, it's also the surrounding suburbs, it's also the surrounding land, it's also the surrounding cities and towns actually now being serviced by this. And Chewy, you said 4 times a day about that helicopter. Mate, I reckon it's much more than that. I feel like every second or third time I'm driving down those one ways, I see it. I see the helicopter flying. Now, I could be wrong, but I reckon it would be much more than 4 times a day. That'd be 30 times a week. I reckon it's going to be 50, 60 or 70 times a week, maybe. Could be wrong, but it just seems to be, you see it so regularly. If it was only 4 times a day, I wouldn't expect to see it quite that much.